Hi, and welcome to the Balanced Body Podcast. I'm Carrie Reese-Demler from Paragon Pilates and Physical Therapy in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I'm here today with Gabrielle Schreier. We're going to be talking about hamstring strength in dancers. A lot of times what I see when working with dancers is a lot of times there are tight hip flexors and tight low back musculature. They have more of that lower crossed syndrome posture where the hamstrings are really long and the abdominal muscles are really long. So what we're going to be focusing on today is strengthening the hamstrings and really opening the front of the hip and stretching out the hip flexors. So Gabrielle's going to come down onto the reformer, and we want to make sure that the headrest is down because she's going to be going up into a bridge position, rolling onto the shoulders, and you want to make sure that the headrest is down so there's not too much neck flexion when you roll up through the spine. So we're going to have ball between knees, and that's going to give just a light adduction component that's going to feed up through the pelvic floor and into the transverse. So keeping the heels, we're going to go on the cup of the heels. You can also go on the arch or the heel, or do this in a turned out position if you want to work more the lateral hamstring. We're going to go into a bridge. So she's going to take a breath in, and on her breath out, I want her to go into a big posterior tilt. So just pause there for a second. So that from the beginning, she's opening the front of the hip flexors, and then she's going to continue that as she rolls up. We want to see the pubic bone coming up as the highest point and the rib cage drawing in and down and activating the core. So you really get the sensation of the sit bones kind of going through the thigh bones, and you see the openness in the front of the hips as opposed to, go ahead and drop back a little bit into an anterior tilt. Yeah, you don't want to see the front of the pelvis closing in like that. You really want to pay attention to opening, kind of like opening two eyes in the front of your hip sockets. Holding there, take a breath in, and as you breathe out, you're going to roll down through the spine, pulling the carriage into the bumper. Good. Inhale at the bottom, and exhale, curl up again. And I'm kind of tractioning her knees out over her toes so she gets that idea of length through the quadriceps and really pulling the carriage home. And that same sensation as you roll down, that really kicks in the hamstrings in the backs of the legs. You can progress that by rolling up, so tucking the tailbone, articulating the spine as you come up, really opening the front of the hips. And again, you want to watch for rib cage alignment. So those guys are really pulling down. She's going to press the carriage out, stretching through the knees. And as she comes in, she's tucking the tailbone again. So you want to reactivate the hamstrings every time. Go ahead. Do that 2 more times. Inhale on the way out. Exhale, draw in with your hamstrings. 1 more time, breath in. And exhale, coming all the way forward and then rolling down through the back. 1 bone at a time. Good. And rest for a second. After you do an exercise that is so intense on the hamstrings, you're going to want to stretch the hamstrings. If the client is up in the exercise and they experience a hamstring cramp, you actually don't want them to work through the cramp. Go ahead and bring them down, go ahead and stretch the hamstring out, and then reconnect into the exercise. So now we're going to advance the exercise a little bit and do some single leg work. So when they roll up to the bridge, you're going to go ahead and tuck under, and she's going to roll up to the bridge on 2 legs. Keeping the pelvis, really tucking under, still monitoring that openness in the front of the hips. She's going to stabilize through her left leg and bring the right leg up into a tabletop position. Good. You want to watch for the hips to stay nice and level. And now from here, she's going to press out just halfway and then all the way into the bumper. Just 3 times. So work on keeping this knee up towards the ceiling, keeping the hips nice and level. 1 more time. All the way into the bumper, she's going to bring the leg down and then roll down through the spine. And letting the tailbone come down. So the single leg work is a really intense form of the exercise. So you'll want to do one side, roll down through the spine, and then go back in and reestablish it for the second side. And then once again, stretching the hamstrings after the exercise is complete. So now we're going to do some hamstring work on the long box in a prone position. So Gabrielle's going to come down onto her belly, facing that way, actually. And we've shortened the ropes so that the length of the ropes, the canvas part, goes right over the peg there. So I'm going to bring her feet into the straps. And what I'm looking for specifically is that she keeps her pubic bone planted now. So when we talk about neutral pelvis in a supine position, we talk about planting the tailbone. And now when we're in a prone position, you really want to plant the pubic bone so that that low back can lengthen again, and you get a lengthening effect in the front of the hips. So that's really what you're monitoring: pelvic stability, pubic bone planted, and the low back nice and long. She's going to be in a neutral spine, so lift your head up just a little bit and open your chest. There you go. And arms are just at the front of the box, just resting, but you still have the upper back engaged, and you have a nice long neutral spine. So from here, we're going to do this in 3 different positions. We're going to do turned out, parallel, and then a single leg position. So she's going to take a breath in. On the breath out, she's going to draw the heels toward the sit bones, and then breathe in and extend the legs. And again, exhale. So she's contracting the hamstring. And what you're really watching for is that the pubic bone stays down. Okay? So she's actually stretching the quads and the hip flexors while she's working the hamstrings. Good. So that's a turned out position. Now we're going to go ahead and bring the legs parallel. So bring knees together. When you do this, it becomes much more difficult to keep that pubic bone planted. So I'm really monitoring that the low back is lengthened. And go ahead, same thing. Exhale, pull the knees in, breathe in and extend. And exhale, pull. Good. Inhale, extend. And she's doing a beautiful job of keeping that down. You can also watch the front of the hips here so that they're really pressing into the box. One more time. Good. Now let's go into a single leg. So you're going to extend your right leg out. So there's no tension on the ropes, but this leg is long and active. And now we're just working single leg. So she's going to pull the heel toward her seat. And you're monitoring the pelvis so you don't see any shifting 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock. That those frontal hip bones are really staying solid into the box. Beautiful. And rest. And of course you would do both sides. Okay, so we're training both sides of the body equally, so she would do both sides. You can also do circles here if you want to impact all the 3 hamstrings in the back. So to do that, she's going to bend her knees up. Same neutral pelvis position. She's going to pull the feet in towards her, and then keeping knees together, the feet are going to circle around and together. Okay, so she's pulling in, circle around, and down. Good. You're still watching the length of the spine. The upper back is still connected, and the neck is long. Beautiful. One more time. And rest. Go ahead and extend your legs. And again, you could do a hamstring stretch after this exercise to let those hamstrings lengthen and release. And just to wrap up this series, we're working on strengthening the hamstrings for dancers. Dancers do have such long hamstrings that we really want to get some strength back there and stretch and open the front of the hips. So while you're doing that, you're looking at pelvic stability, stretching the front of the hips, tightening up the hamstrings, and then overall working core, upper back stability, and all your principles. So thanks for joining us on this Balanced Body podcast.